And I think that whoever beats Roman Reigns should be beating Roman Reigns at his absolute highest level. If it's The Rock, if it's Cody, if it's L.A. Knight, yeah, whoever it is. And I don't think it will be L.A. Knight, but say it was, for argument's sake. Because if it's Seth, I think you can make a very strong argument that if you do the work now to get Seth where he needs to be, that Seth makes more sense than anyone to be the guy that finally beats Roman. But the point is that somebody's going to beat him. And when they do, you don't want somebody to beat Roman after everything's been stripped away from him. You don't want somebody to beat Roman when he's at his weakest. You want somebody to beat Roman when he's at his strongest. When you're in a relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, there's this thing that happens, right? Where you can have a knockdown, drag-out fight with your significant other. And you sit there and you think to yourself, oh my God, this might be it. Man, I don't know if we're going to recover from this one. This is as big a fight as we ever had. Feelings are hurt. And this is serious. We might be done. And sometimes you are done. And you have to figure out what the next thing is, and hopefully you find happiness elsewhere. But other times, you're not done. And what happens sometimes is that after that fight, you and your significant other are stronger now than you ever were. If you can get past that hump and you can do it without harboring resentments and leaving that in the past, having grown from it, then your relationship very well may be stronger than ever. That's where the bloodline needs to go. The bloodline is at its best when everyone is together. There is something so cool about seeing the bloodline all together. There's nothing like it in wrestling. It's just an exclusive, blood-related faction that nobody can penetrate. That's where you need to get back to. So for me, spend the entire fall, just like, the summer was the deterioration, the fall can be the explosion. But at the end of the fall, once the leaves are on the ground and the snow starts coming from the sky, I think the bloodline needs to slowly start to reform. I think that now is not the time for Solo and Roman to have that explosion. Now is the time for us to think that that's what's happening. But I don't even think we should have a singles match between Solo and Roman. I think the first time we see Solo and Roman put hands on each other is in that Fatal 4-Way, preferably at Survivor Series. After that, Solo comes to Roman's aid. Maybe the next week on SmackDown, maybe in the next pay-per-view, whatever it is. Eventually, the Usos get back together. And as a unit, the Usos have Roman Reigns back. And slowly but surely, the bloodline reforms. And when Roman goes to WrestleMania, with the bloodline intact and all members together, stronger than they have ever been. And once you go from there, there's a lot you can do. I think that eventually they are going to all be baby faces, right? Roman has to be a babyface eventually. Maybe the bloodline turns on Paul Heyman at some point. Maybe the bloodline exists without the wise man. Maybe it was the wise man that was getting in between them. And there's this version of the bloodline, the core four, without Paul Heyman. Maybe the bloodline exists with Solo turning on Roman, Solo and Paul Heyman split, and now Roman Reigns and the Usos are all baby faces, and Roman's got a problem with Solo. There's a million, but that's way, 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 way in the future. That's not the here, and that's not the now. But for me, the bloodline is so far away from jumping the shark. Look, maybe I'm a show, but I'm so much more of the school of thought. I love when wrestling is elevated. I feel like part of what we do on this show is talk about what is happening week to week in these storylines with so much seriousness and so much sincerity, because I'd like to elevate the conversation. I want us to be able to have these in-depth conversations about the story, not about like, oh, you know, this backstage, that guy's not getting this guy. No, it's like, let's really break down this storyline and why it's so great. It happens. Sports fans are able to break down what they watch. More importantly, I think that, you know, Star Wars fans are able to have in-depth conversations about what is going on between these characters. Superhero fans, Marvel, DC Universe. You can get a Marvel Universe fan and go to town about the intricacies of the storyline and the relationships between characters. And the stuff that we're seeing with the Bloodline, to me, surpasses a lot of lore-based storytelling when it comes, whether it's superheroes, whether it's Star Wars, science fiction, whatever. The Bloodline's right there. I want to talk about the Bloodline the way we talked about Succession. When we talked about Succession, we had conversations about who was going to take over the company. Oh, but Shiv did this. Oh, but Roman, coincidentally enough, he doesn't deserve this. He did that. You know, going back and forth. This is how I would like to talk about wrestling, but two things need to happen. One is we need to be able to have those conversations, but most importantly, we need to get the material to have those conversations. And I feel like if we are willing to have those conversations, then the people responsible for creating the sports entertainment television that we ingest on a weekly basis have no excuse to not give us stories that we can truly sink our teeth into the way we can sink our teeth into this. And I think the Bloodline, to me, is elevated storytelling. And some people will be like, hell yeah, that's exactly what I think. And other people will be like, Sam, you've lost it, like you're blinded by whatever. And that's fine. I'm happy with that conversation too.